My desk neighbor ate my lunch every single day for 3 weeks straight. When I finally caught her red-handed with my grandmother's famous lasagna, she looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Prove it." What happened next got me called into HR, but not for the reason you'd think. They wanted me to apologize to her. I'd been at Morrison Financial for almost 4 years when they moved us to the new collaborative workspace. Translation, they crammed 60 people into an open floor plan with desks so close together you could smell what your neighbor had for breakfast. My desk neighbor was Denise, 52 years old, been with the company for 18 years, and convinced that seniority meant she owned the entire office. She had this way of looking at you like you were something she'd scraped off her shoe. The first week in our new arrangement, I noticed my yogurt was missing from the communal fridge. I figured I'd forgotten it at home. The second day, my leftover Chinese food vanished. By Friday, my entire lunch, a chicken salad sandwich, an apple, and a bag of chips, had disappeared. I started leaving notes on my food. "Property of Maya, please do not touch." The lunches kept vanishing. I complained to my manager, Greg. He shrugged and said, "Maybe get a lunchbox with a lock? It's a big office." So I did exactly that. I bought an insulated lunch bag with a small combination lock on the zipper. The next morning, I came back from a meeting to find my bag unzipped, the lock somehow opened, and my turkey wrap gone. That's when I started paying attention to Denise. She always seemed to be eating the exact same things I'd packed. My homemade pasta salad, she had pasta salad. My leftover pizza, suddenly she was eating pizza too. But every time I looked over, she'd have it in her own container, on her own plate. I mentioned my suspicions to my work friend Keisha, who sat 3 rows over. "Girl, everyone knows Denise is shady," Keisha whispered during our coffee break. "Last year, she got Janet from accounting written up for hostile work environment because Janet asked her to stop microwaving fish. Denise went to HR claiming Janet was discriminating against her dietary choices. That's insane. Welcome to the Denise experience." I decided to set a trap. The following Monday, I packed my grandmother's famous lasagna, the recipe she'd passed down to my mom, then to me. It was in a very distinctive vintage Pyrex dish with blue flowers on the sides. There was no way Denise could claim it was hers. I put it in the fridge at 8 a.m. By 11:30, it was gone. I walked back to my desk, and there was Denise sitting at her workspace eating lasagna out of a plain white ceramic bowl. The vintage Pyrex was nowhere to be seen. "That's my lasagna," I said, my voice shaking. She didn't even look up. "Excuse me? That lasagna, you took it from the fridge. It was in my grandmother's dish." Denise finally met my eyes. Her expression was completely blank, almost amused. "I don't know what you're talking about. I brought this from home." "You're eating my food. I can see the layers. That's my grandmother's recipe." "A lot of people make lasagna." She took another bite, maintaining eye contact. "Prove it." I was trembling with rage. "Where's my dish, the blue Pyrex?" "I don't know anything about a dish. Maybe you should be more careful with your things." I stormed to the kitchen. My Pyrex was gone. I checked the trash, the cabinets, everywhere. Nothing. I went straight to HR. The HR representative, a tired-looking man named Donald, listened to my complaint with visible disinterest. "So you're saying Denise stole your lunch?" "Yes, and my grandmother's dish. It's irreplaceable." "Do you have proof?" "I saw her eating it." "Did anyone else witness this?" I stopped. The desks around us were empty during lunch. "No, but I know it was mine." Donald sighed. "Maya, I understand you're frustrated, but without concrete evidence, there's nothing we can do. Denise has been with this company for 18 years. She has an impeccable record." "Impeccable?" "Keisha told me she got Janet written up for—" "I can't discuss other employees' files with you." I left HR feeling defeated, but I wasn't giving up. I bought a small camera disguised as a pen and clipped it to my lunch bag. If Denise wanted proof, I'd give her proof. For 3 days, nothing happened. My lunches stayed untouched. I almost wondered if I'd scared her off. Then Thursday came. I reviewed the footage that evening. Clear as day, there was Denise walking to the fridge at 11:47 a.m. She opened my lunch bag, removed my sandwich and fruit, transferred them to her own containers, and walked away. She even had the audacity to throw my brown paper bag in the trash. I had her. Friday morning, I marched into HR with my laptop, ready to show Donald the evidence. But when I got there, Denise was already sitting in his office, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "Oh, good, you're here," Donald said, his tone cold. "Please sit down." "What's going on?" "Denise has filed a formal complaint against you." My stomach dropped. "A complaint? For what?"
harassment and hostile work environment. She says you've been accusing her of theft, following her around the office, and making her feel unsafe at her desk. Denise let out a small sob. I've worked here for almost 2 decades, and I've never been treated this way. She watches me constantly. I can feel her eyes on me all day. I'm having trouble sleeping. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She's lying. I have video proof that she's been stealing my lunch. Donald's eyebrows shot up. Video proof? Maya, did you record another employee without their consent? I recorded the refrigerator to catch whoever was taking my food. That refrigerator is in a common area where employees have a reasonable expectation of privacy. Recording someone without consent is a serious violation of company policy. Donald leaned back in his chair. I'm afraid this changes things significantly.
Okay, I need to stop here because I still can't wrap my head around this. She stole my food for weeks, took my grandmother's irreplaceable dish, and somehow I'm the one in trouble for proving it? Subscribe if you think this is absolutely insane. Drop a comment and tell me, would you have recorded her too? Because what HR said next made me want to flip the table.
Donald folded his hands on his desk. Given the severity of Denise's complaint and the unauthorized recording, we're placing you on a formal performance improvement plan. A PIP? For catching a thief? For creating a hostile work environment and violating company privacy policies. He slid a document across the desk. Additionally, we expect you to apologize to Denise for your behavior. Denise was still crying, but I could swear I saw the corner of her mouth twitch upward. I'm not apologizing, I said firmly. She stole from me, repeatedly. I have evidence. Evidence obtained through improper means is not admissible in any HR proceeding, Donald recited like he was reading from a script. If you refuse to apologize, we'll have to consider further disciplinary action. I looked at Denise. She had stopped crying and was watching me with cold, calculating eyes. This wasn't about lunch anymore. This was a power play, and she was winning. Fine, I heard myself say. I apologize. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. Wonderful, Donald smiled like we'd just resolved a minor scheduling conflict. I'm glad we could work this out. Denise, are you satisfied with this resolution? Denise nodded graciously. I just want us to be able to work together in peace. I walked back to my desk in a daze. Keisha caught my eye from across the room and mouthed, "What happened?" I just shook my head. For the next 2 weeks, I brought nothing to the office that required refrigeration. Protein bars, crackers, things I could keep in my locked desk drawer. I ate at my computer, never leaving my workspace during lunch. Denise, meanwhile, seemed to be thriving. She'd greet me every morning with a cheerful, "Good morning, Maya," loud enough for everyone to hear, the performance of a gracious victor. But I wasn't done. I just needed to be smarter. I started documenting everything, every interaction, every time she took food from the fridge that seemed suspiciously familiar, every backhanded comment she made within earshot. I noted dates, times, and any witnesses present. I also started talking to other employees, quietly, carefully. It turned out Denise had a pattern. Janet from accounting wasn't her only victim. There was Marcus, who'd transferred departments after Denise complained that he was intimidating her by existing while being a tall black man. There was Priya, whose promotion had been mysteriously delayed after she'd refused to switch desks with Denise. There was a former employee named Christine who'd quit entirely after Denise spent 6 months spreading rumors about her. None of them had gone on record. None of them had fought back. They'd all just accepted it. I reached out to Christine through LinkedIn. We met for coffee on a Saturday. "Why didn't you report her?" I asked. "I did," Christine said bitterly. 3 times. HR said there wasn't enough evidence. Denise is smart. She never does anything with witnesses. She never leaves a trail. And she's been there so long, she knows exactly how the system works. "So you just left?" I had to. She was destroying my mental health. Christine stirred her coffee. But I saved everything. Every email, every screenshot, every note I ever made, just in case. Something clicked in my brain. "Would you be willing to share that with me?" Christine smiled grimly. "I was hoping you'd ask." Over the next month, I built a case. Christine's documentation, Marcus's transfer request citing a hostile work environment, Janet's original complaint before Denise's counter-complaint had buried it, Priya's delayed promotion paperwork with no valid justification. I also discovered something interesting about Donald in HR. He and Denise had been hired the same year. They worked in the same department before he'd moved to human resources. They were friends. I took everything to Donald's boss, the VP of Human Resources, a woman named Sandra, who worked out of the corporate office. Sandra was different. She actually listened. She asked questions. She took notes. "Why didn't you bring this to Donald?" she asked. "Because I have reason to believe Donald has a personal relationship with Denise that may be affecting his judgment." Sandra's pen stopped moving. "That's a serious accusation." "I know, but I have documentation showing that every complaint against Denise in the past 5 years has been dismissed without investigation. Every single one went through Donald." Sandra was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I'll need some time to review all of this." 2 weeks later, I was called into a conference room. Sandra was there, so was the head of legal, and so was Donald, looking significantly less comfortable than I'd ever seen him. "Maya," Sandra began, "I want to start by apologizing on behalf of the company. Our investigation has revealed significant failures in how your complaint and several others were handled." I sat frozen, afraid to hope. "Denise's employment has been terminated, effective immediately. We discovered that she was also stealing office supplies, expensing personal meals to the company, and had been running a small side business using company resources during work hours. The lunch theft was just the tip of the iceberg." I exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. "Additionally," Sandra continued, "Donald will be taking a leave of absence while we review his handling of HR complaints over the past several years. We take conflicts of interest very seriously." Donald wouldn't look at me. "What about my PIP?" I asked. "Removed from your file entirely, and the company would like to offer you compensation for the items that were stolen, including your grandmother's dish." "That dish was irreplaceable." Sandra nodded solemnly. "I understand. We can discuss what appropriate compensation might look like." I left that meeting feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Vindicated. But the best part came a week later. I was grabbing coffee in the kitchen when I ran into Janet from accounting. "I heard what you did," she said quietly. "Thank you. I was starting to think nobody would ever believe us." She targeted all of us. We just needed to stick together. Janet hugged me right there in the kitchen, and for the first time since I'd moved to that open floor plan, the office felt like somewhere I could actually breathe. Oh, and my grandmother's Pyrex? 3 months later, a box arrived at my desk. Inside was the dish. Denise had apparently hidden it in her car. She'd returned it as part of a legal settlement to avoid prosecution for theft. It had a small chip on one corner, but it was home. I keep it on a shelf in my apartment now. A reminder that sometimes the people who seem untouchable aren't. Sometimes the system can work. You just have to fight harder than they expect you to.
Thank you so much for sticking with me through that whole nightmare. If Denise taught me anything, it's that people like her count on us staying silent. So don't. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you've got your own workplace horror story, a terrible boss, a nightmare coworker, an HR disaster, send it my way. Your story might be featured in the next video. Until then, take care of yourselves and remember, document everything.